Congressman Jordan, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Sean.
You know, I was thinking this is the last time I'm going to call you Congressman because you're chairman, Jordan, in a couple of weeks. You got to be excited about what all of this means for you and the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, this is a chance to do what we told the American people we were going to do: secure the border, get back to common sense energy policy, make sure the tax cuts that were so good that President Trump did back when you were in the White House, make sure those get reauthorized and some other tax cuts take place, and get about fixing the country and getting our economy moving and helping the families across this great land. So, yeah, it's a pretty exciting time.
So I know the Senate obviously deals with nominations, but you'll be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. What do you think about the Donald Trump's pick in Pam Bondi to lead the Department of Justice?
I think it's great. I mean, Pam's the kind of individual who's going to make sure that justice is done the way it's supposed to be: equal treatment under the law, not this political approach to the law that we've seen, not this lawfare that we've seen, not this Jack Smith, Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, ridiculous stuff that we have witnessed, and a Justice Department that won't be saying, oh, moms and dads at school board meetings need to be investigated. Oh, an FBI that said, if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist. And maybe it'll be a Justice Department that can tell us who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, and who put cocaine at the White House, for goodness sake. Maybe give us some answer to those questions. So she's the kind of individual you want leading this organization, this agency, where they're focused on serving the people, not targeting we the people.
You know, when President Trump nominated Kash Patel to lead the FBI, at first I was like, I've known Kash a long time, and I was like, this is going to be interesting to see what the reaction is in Washington. And I got to tell you, if I had a scale of 1 to 10 on who gets nominated on Kash, I'm going to give him a 9.5. Yeah. Obviously, I always give myself a little room for error, but I've been shocked at the number of people who I assumed would be anti-Kash that are excited about shaking up. And like, I'm talking about establishment folks, Congressman, that said to me, you know what, the FBI does need to be shaken up, and Kash Patel's time to. And like the kind of people that you and I both know that you're like, okay, wow. I'm surprised, but he has really garnered some serious support. And I think that goes to both Kash, but it also goes to the state of the FBI.
No, well said, all well said. And I always go back to this. Remember, it was Kash Patel working for then Chairman Nunes who said it was the Clinton campaign who hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who put lies together in a dossier that was taken to the secret court, the FISA court, to get the permission to go spy on President Trump's campaign. And they lied to the court when they got that permission, that warrant to do it. I mean, it's like Kash Patel was at the center of all that, figuring it out and letting we, the people, the American people, understand what was going on. God bless him for doing that. That in and of itself is the reason we need him as running the FBI, because he was willing to show how bad it had gotten under Comey and what they were doing to a Republican candidate for president of the United States, and then all the other stuff that happened. So, yeah, I'm glad he selected him, too. He's the kind of guy who's going to get in there like Pam Bondi and going to shake things up and get things back on the right track.
We're talking positively about two of the nominees. There's another gentleman by the name of Chad Chronister, the Hillsborough, Florida sheriff, that withdrew his name. I found it fascinating, though. Why? Because there was, I think, widespread concern from a lot of MAGA world that his actions during COVID, going after a preacher for holding services, etc. What I find fascinating about it is it's normally you're worried about the left shooting your people down, but it was the MAGA world that said, I'm sorry, this guy is antithetical to what we have been fighting for in this America First agenda.
Yeah.
And he withdrew his name. I'm excited about it because, like I said, I think the America First MAGA team is like, hey, we fought long and hard to get where we are now, and we're not going to let people who aren't committed to the agenda.
Well, this past 2 years, this is where we spent the bulk of our time on the Judiciary Committee is showing how Americans' liberties were attacked. The whole censorship issue, every First Amendment liberty we have was assaulted by the Biden-Harris administration during COVID. So I think that's where this comes from. This stems from this idea that, you know, we saw what they did, whether it was the mayor of New York, the governor of New York, and the things they did there. Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles said, establish a snitch line like Tim Walz did in Minnesota. Report your neighbor if they're outside walking their dog and they don't have a mask on, for goodness. It was ridiculous. So Yeah, I think people were rightly concerned, particularly now when you look back, Sean, and you figure out, and we understand now that everything Fauci told us, unelected Dr. Fauci told us, was not accurate, right? He said it didn't come from a lab. He said it wasn't gain of function research done at the lab. He said it wasn't our tax money used at the lab. He said the vaccinated can't get it, the vaccinated can't transmit the virus. Those were all false. He said 6 feet was social distancing was based on science. He said masks worked. And he told us this was the first virus in history that there was no such thing as natural immunity. Like there's like 8 lies. He was 0 for 8. And yet you had people like restricting people's liberties based on all those lies. And we look back on it all and we say, no, we're done with all that. We don't want that. We want to protect the First Amendment, protect our rights. And I think that was why you saw the pushback that you did and why this sheriff stepped down.
So the thing that about what you said that I find interesting is that for so long we've been told to trust institutions, doctors, government, you name it. Just trust them. They've got your best interest at heart. And I kind of view that with a lot of healthcare, right? So your doctor tells you to do something. The FDA recommends something. The CDC approves something. And I go, okay, because these are the people, this is what they do. And I would say over the last 8 to 12 months, through a lot of people's work, some of the stuff that you're doing in Congress, there's a lot more questions now that need to get asked and answered. Why are there these conflicts at the FDA? I didn't realize that half the people approving drugs were also getting paid to do the research on them or have enormous conflicts. I think that there's just so much that we are now as the American people being shown these conflicts that, or, I ask doctors now, how much nutrition training have you ever gotten? Well, none. And now you're going to tell me that, you start to realize why the flaws are. So I say all that as a wind up to ask you, as you take the chairmanship of the Judiciary Committees, what are your priorities? What do you want to uncover? What do you want to investigate? What do you want to have hearings on?
We want to continue to focus on this effort to limit Americans' First Amendment liberty, this censorship effort. Remember, we got Mark Zuckerberg to write us a letter saying, Biden administration pressured us to censor. We, in fact, censored. We also censored the Hunter Biden laptop story and the Zuckerberg. We got him to do that. We got this organization, GARM, is no longer in operation because of the work we did on the committee. So we want to continue the work there. And of course, we're going to work on the border issue because that jurisdiction is in the Judiciary Committee, immigration law. But I'm really focused on First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment. This is why it's so important that Tulsi Gabbard get confirmed, because Tulsi is 100% with us on FISA. This is why it's so important Kash Patel get confirmed, because he understands you've got to reform FISA. That comes up for reauthorization in a year and a half. So we need people in the administration who get where we need to go to protect our Fourth Amendment rights, our First Amendment rights. And frankly, to your point, this is why it's important RFK Jr. gets confirmed, because he's willing to push back on the experts like Fauci, who told us all this stuff that turned out not to be true. That's why this is all important. But we're going to continue to focus on this idea of the attacks from government working with big tech, big media to limit and censor us, all in the name of disinformation, when in fact they're the ones providing the disinformation. So we think that's real important.
There's a story that was in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago about these corporate CEOs that are scrubbing their websites of DEI, trying to get on Joe Rogan and emulate Donald Trump. There was a story that Mark Zuckerberg went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss and suck up. I'm concerned that a lot of these corporations are trying to figure out, how do I survive for the next 4 years, right? I'm going to say the right things. I'm going to do the right things just to get by for the next 4 years, as opposed to be exposed. I mean, like Robbie Starbuck, some of these guys are doing amazing work, getting these guys to denounce their DEI and woke policies and get back to the business of, frankly, doing business. So I love the idea that you're continuing to hold them accountable, because I don't think that one meeting at Mar-a-Lago, sort of absolves Mark Zuckerberg for everything that he's done to censor issues, to spread Zuckbucks around the world, the country, to get his people elected. So I think making sure that these companies are continuing to be held accountable for the suppression of stories, for their actions on DEI policy is important, and that we don't back down just because we have a Republican president.
No, I agree. That's why we want to keep doing the work. Now, I do think some of these people maybe they've genuinely seen the light and they realize, wow, what was happening, this whole disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, all this baloney, and to push to censor. Maybe they figured out that's wrong, and there's a true embracement, of the First Amendment again. Let's hope so. But you may be right too, and there may be just, well, President Trump won. Let's get through the next 4 years. It could be a combination. I don't know. What I do know is we need to protect the First Amendment. I still remember back when COVID happened, there was a memorandum that came from the Justice Department from Bill Barr, and the memorandum said the Constitution is not suspended in a time of crisis. And I would say actually that's when it's most important. So we need to remember that. And hopefully there's a genuine change of heart with some of these folks, but we're going to continue to do the oversight that the Constitution requires us to do.
How many new friends do you have since November 5th that have called and said, oh, Congressman Jordan, I get so many people who call me, but I can't imagine being the incoming Judiciary Committee chair who are like, I just wanted to get to know you some better. Are companies reaching out saying that I'd just like 5 minutes with the chairman to talk about, our agenda and how we can work together? I have found it, and I'm at obviously just, have a show, right? You have a gavel. How many new friends do you have?
Yeah, it definitely happens. We're having meetings. I just came from a meeting. We got some other ones coming. So yeah, that happens. But I guess the real center of the universe, as you know, is down in Palm Beach. They're all going down there to talk to the guy who's going to be president of the United States in 40 some days. So that's the real center there, because people understand, and you can see the behavior, like whether it's foreign heads of state, like the Prime Minister of Canada coming down, what have you. People understand that there's a change coming, and it's a change that I think is going to be good for our country.
The Democrats are obviously worried about your agenda because they're fighting out who gets to sit next to you as the ranking member, the lead Democrat. So currently that's Jerry Nadler of New York. But now apparently Jamie Raskin of Maryland is going to challenge him. And the case that he's trying to make to his fellow Democrats is, let me leapfrog Nadler. He's been there forever, but the guy's old and he can't take on Jim Jordan. Do you care who sits next to you? Is it something that because they're literally, that's how he's campaigning. He's campaigning.
I saw that. It's funny because I saw that same letter, and it's like we get mentioned in the letter along with MAGA. It's kind of interesting. I don't care if it's Jamie. I don't care if it's Jerry. To me, our focus is doing what we told the American people we were going to do. And as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, that's the committee that's supposed to be looking out for your liberties, your viewers' liberties, the American people's fundamental rights, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. That's what we're supposed to do. We're going to focus on that. I don't care who the ranking member is. We got a job to do, and that's what we're going to do.
You mentioned immigration. Is there anything that you want to look at in terms of immigration law to codify certain things? There's been discussion on the right over about birthright citizenship. What do you want legislatively to see happen in that realm?
Well, the first is President Trump's going to look at getting back to remain in Mexico. It'd be nice if we could actually get that in law, that people wait in the adjacent country while we evaluate their claim, so that we don't have to detain them. Or what the Biden administration did is just release them into the country and then say, show up in 4 years and we'll figure out if you get to stay or not. That we got to stop that. So that'd be good if we got that in law. I think President Trump can do a lot of that, though. Executive order. There's some things we can do with the Flores decision. There's things we can do with this whole parole program, this Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti, where the Biden administration is letting people fly in and bypass the normal process. That needs to stop. So we're looking at all those. We had a good bill, H.R. 2, that I think we should pass as soon as we start next Congress, pass again, send it to the Senate. Probably won't get passed there, but then you take what elements you can from that bill, you put them in the reconciliation package, and help firm up our immigration law and our border security.
When I was down visiting the border a few weeks back in Cochise County, I asked the agents, what are the top things that you would tell the next administration they need to do to secure the border? Number one, they both said finish the wall. Number two, they said enforce the law. And I said to them, I don't know, what does that mean, enforce the law? And he said, Sean, when you cross the border the first time, it's a misdemeanor. The second time, it's a felony. He said, one guy I've picked up 29 times. Yep. He goes, we don't enforce the law. And that's where I think, your efforts to make sure that we're actually enforcing the law. It's against the law. It's a felony to come into this country twice, and yet they get let off. It's like we give them a free ride back to the border so they can continue to traffic drugs and humans.
And here's another one. 1.3 million people who've come to our country, migrants who come into the country, have already been in front of a judge, been through the process, and their asylum claim has been heard, and they've said, no, you don't qualify under the law. And they're still here. That's the Democrats are going to make a big deal of the deportation. President Trump's going to start, and Tom Homan, they're going to start with criminals, and then they're going to go to the 1.3 million who've already been in front of a judge, and the judge said, you don't qualify under our law. That's the people you deport. Once you start doing those things, finish the wall, remain in Mexico, deport the people who've already had their case heard in front of a judge, you will send a message, and you wait. That's when the border gets secure again, like it was 4 years ago under President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key thing, right? If people don't think that they can get rewarded for breaking our laws, they won't come.
Of course,
right? I
of
mean,
course.
this is. I mean, it's 101. If you can break the speed limit, if you know that a cop doesn't patrol the speed, the road, you'll break the speed limit, and we need to start doing that. But you mentioned the Judiciary Committee's priorities. Let's talk about what the Congresses are. Senator John Thune, the incoming majority leader, said the first bill, he has two bills that he wants to focus on. The first bill, a package focused on border, energy, national defense, would land on Trump's desk within the first 30 days under Thune's plan. The second, a sprawling tax package focused on extending the 2017 tax cuts that expire at the end of this year. Okay. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, your colleague Jason Smith, said, no. We have to put the tax bill first. That's got to be the priority. Where do you come down on what the priority should be and how the sequencing should go?
I'm not sure the sequencing. I'm not sure how you split it up. What I do know is I think all that needs to get done. And the key is when we're going to have basically a 2-seat majority for a bulk of this time period. We're at 219 to 215 when we start Congress because Mr. Gates is not taking office. He's not going to serve the next Congress. And then we got Elise Stefanik and Michael Walz going in the administration. So it's going to be 217, 215 real quick. So you got two vote. You can't lose one vote.
Right.
So with that's the case, what does it take for us to make sure we get 217 votes to pass things and the Senate can pass things and we can use reconciliation? Do we have to have some taxes in with energy? Do we have to have taxes and energy and border security immigration law together to get everyone to vote for it? I don't know. What I would say is let's get it all done, and how tactically that plays out, I think it's going to be determined by what allows us to get the votes. And we just got to deal with reality. But what we got to get done is what we told the American people we're going to get done, and that is all of those things. Common sense energy policy, secure the border, and cut taxes, and not just renew and reauthorize the tax cuts that were in place in the last Trump administration, but also the new things we've talked about. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime that President Trump talked about. And we're going to have to do something, I think, with the SALT issue, because we've got such a small majority. Some of our members from New York and California are going to want some element of that in the package. And you got to figure out how all that works together. That's the legislative process. It gets messy sometimes. So I'm not sure the tactics, but let's just get it all done.
Well, that's the just to remind people, that's the state and local tax deduction that you get for like having a house in blue states like Texas. I mean, California and New Jersey New York have a problem because they have high property taxes.
Right.
But the tactics matter, right? Because you mentioned this, you have a 2-seat majority. And so let's just say a Mike Lawler of New York who really wants that SALT deduction. He might say, if it's not in here, I can't vote for it. You might say, well, if we don't have key elements of HR2, how does a guy like Mike Johnson keep everybody together? Because I get your point, right? You're going to do your job, and then the leadership has to do theirs. But if you're them, I got to imagine this is not going to be an easy feat because one or two people torpedo the whole thing.
Exactly, and that's why you got to have lots of meetings, lots of conversations, and some of those are already starting. I know we got an important meeting coming up here in a couple hours on this very subject. A handful of us. That's just how it has to go, and that's part of the legislative process. But what we got to keep, I think, sort of as the main point, the old idea, keep the main point. The main point is the American people elected us to get this done, and we talked about all that: energy, border, tax pact. We talked about all that. So let's make sure we get it done.
All right. How much time should we spend going after someone like Hunter Biden? I had Alan Dershowitz on the show. He said, hey, look, by Joe Biden giving him a full pardon, he can't use his Fifth Amendment anymore because you can't claim him. You can't claim that you're going to perjure or impugn yourself because it's been taken away. So should Congress call him in front, your committee and others, government reform?
Well, where I want to focus is certainly on the Judiciary Committee is David Weiss. We had David Weiss in for a deposition several months back, and he wouldn't answer really anything because he kept hiding behind ongoing investigation. Because remember, but for two brave whistleblowers from the IRS who came forward, they'd have got away with all this. We'd have never known any of this stuff. It'd have happened. He'd have had his sweetheart deal that he went to the court in Delaware. And by the way, the judge was great too. So two whistleblowers and a judge in Delaware stopped the sweetheart deal from happening. And then David Weiss gets named special counsel. So we got to do our work on the Judiciary Committee, the typical work you do on oversight to look at special counsels when they issue their report. So we're going to focus on that. And whether that involves, what that may involve with Hunter Biden, I think remains to be seen. But I want to focus on David Weiss because there's all kinds of inconsistencies there that we need to uncover, and we need to get all that information. So that's where the Judiciary Committee will focus. Chairman Comer may look to do something more relative to specifically to Hunter Biden. We'll just have to wait and see.
So, but I got to imagine part of the concern, my theory anyway, is the reason he got a blanket pardon is because there's a lot more there. You know, what are the connections to Jim Biden, potentially to the big guy? And that's where I think now there's a lot more. It's not just about Hunter Biden. Who cares about him? But what did he do in pursuit of Biden Inc. overall?
Right. Because, I mean, why else would you have a pardon that is for 10 years and 11 months from January 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2024? 3 of those years, 14, 15, 16, were while Joe Biden was vice president. Those were also the years, coincidentally, when Hunter Biden was getting all the money from Burisma. And Joe Biden, remember, took specific action with our tax money, American tax dollars, to pressure Ukraine to fire the prosecutor. Said, you're not getting the money until the prosecutor's fired, after Hunter Biden asked him to do such a thing. So that, I think, is why this is such a broad pardon and such a long period of time, because it deals with Burisma. And again, this is what we were looking into. I think it's interesting. Democrats said, oh, the Republicans' impeachment inquiry is ridiculous. But then Joe Biden pardons him for the very things we were inquiring about, for goodness sake. So I think that is an interesting element, and something that I think we'll continue to look at. But I want to do it through the, looking at the special counsel, David Weiss.
All right. Congressman, soon to be chairman, Jim Jordan, thanks for joining us. I appreciate
You bet.
it.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.